Welcome back to the Wolves Only podcast powered by JWX. Well, interesting to see you here. You know what? We actually had to cancel on you last week, or what was it, the week before?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the week before. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Happens, right? Happens.
You know what? Living in Southern California, we have there's sometimes issues, and in this case it was a power issue, and I have a million excuses, but this one actually was legitimate. So since then, big news, big current events have happened. Joey Chestnut. Do you know about Joey Chestnut?
I haven't heard. No.
Do you know who he is?
Heard of him.
Okay, so he just hit the world record for hot dogs eaten in 10 minutes.
And what do you know what the number was? I'm curious.
I watched the whole event from start to finish.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, 83.
Yeah, I can't compete with that, man.
I mean, I'm saying, so it was him and what was the guy's name? The Japanese guy, Kobayashi. Okay, so they have had a fucking rivalry for like the last 20 years, bro. And Kobayashi had started was always like the main guy. He could slam hot dogs like no one's business, right? He would always win the Nathan's one. And then all of a sudden this young cat, comes around. He's here. He's ready to clean up. And so he started winning. And then Kobayashi was having some jaw issues. He had arthritis of the jaw, right? You would imagine years of slamming glizzies like that, it's going to do some damage to you, maybe even long term. Right. And so Joey Chestnut started getting in his head about it. He said he was faking the injury. Dog, you're faking the injury, it's all right. You're not as good as me, right? And so finally it was like the final showdown. And Kobayashi shows up, he shaves his head. He's serious. He's ready to fucking slam. And Joey Chestnut just cleaned the fucking floor with him. It's painful. It's painful to watch.
Right. He got in his head. It was the belief thing, man. He stopped believing in himself and, mind over matter type thing. And that's powerful, right? It's a super powerful thing. And it's crazy that just by him saying something so small like that could instill that self-doubt in him enough to where it's like he gets beat.
Well, yeah, it's such a fact. And even honestly, I actually have respect for professional eaters. And to be honest, they're in better shape than some athletes. They're in really good shape. There was another chick from England who ate 2,000 grams of watermelon. It was like a pre-event before the main event. Anyways, and it was she made it she beat the world record of watermelon in less than 2 minutes by 500 grams, insane. It was a tray of this big of of watermelon, and she fucking crushed just absolutely hit it out of the park. And when you watched her focus in, she closed her eyes and she got a rhythm, and as she was doing it, it was incredible to watch because and she's she had her arms were swole, dude. She was fit, in really good shape, and just could slam watermelon like no one you've ever seen.
It's crazy. I've never been. I haven't really watched any of it. I think I've seen it once or twice, but it's a different lifestyle, I'm sure, because just like anything else, I'm sure you've got to train intense, and it's how do you train for stuff like that? Just consume a massive amount of calories throughout the day, and it's if you're not doing something to burn it off, you would be super unhealthy. But
so I do know a little bit about professional. I have kept up on it throughout my my adult life because I think it's interesting. I always watch the Nathan's hot dog eating contest every year, and they train once a week because that's all you can train. Another thing too is I'm sure you've seen before that they would dunk the hot dogs in the water.
Mm-hmm.
They can't do that anymore. They took that out of the rules, so now they can only sip water while they're slamming dogs, and they're still beating records. So it's pretty wild, the rules have changed, times have changed. But what you were saying about him getting in his head, like by that little thing, I mean, think about it. Floyd Mayweather Jr. used to do that shit all the time. Slight things get in his head, start a war mentally with that person, and what would happen? You couldn't hit him. It was like Floyd Mayweather is the greatest boxer of all time. That's not even arguable. Okay. Because the numbers prove it. Okay. Now I'm a big fan. He's from my hometown. You know what I mean? But either way, the way he would get in people's heads was just outrageous, more than anyone else, and the fact is he's probably the worst offensive boxer there is, but it's that defensive edge that he had, that shoulder, you can't get at him. But just like the little things he would do to just dismantle his opponents mentally leading up to the events, up to fight night was like, what are you going to do?
Right.
I am a mental game guy. I like fucking with people. I'm just going to tell you straight up.
I can imagine. There's a lot into it, man. There's a lot that goes into it doing that. I used to do it a little bit, not so much anymore that I've gotten older, but like back in the day I did when I was really competitive, whether it was jujitsu or something like that, you know what I mean? Because there's just so much power in there, like playing with people's heads.
Yeah. It's interesting when, like, now as an adult and in the business world, like you don't really need to do it as much, but like a lot of times, like when I've had certain people that have crossed me a certain way in business, and it's really only one person, and you know who I'm talking about, how like I just like, because I don't get fired up, and it's like, like when you're like the guy who's like the calm, cool, collect guy, and the other person is like the very aggressor, you know what I mean? And they just get more and more mad the calmer you get.
Yeah,
that was the case. That was the case with this fella. To the point of foaming at the mouth, tears running down his eyes, and I just sat there and I was like, "Yeah, Wes, you're wrong." No, tears like foaming at the mouth, dude. Like fuck you. Like you grow up.
right.
And yeah, like the more calm I stayed, the more angry he got. And it was like, dog, we're not in prison anymore, man. Like this is normal life. No one does business this way.
Right.
And anyways, so now everybody knows what I'm talking about. That's it. But yeah, the mental games, and it is too. The other thing is like just like you can either believe in someone or just completely destroy their inner belief, all within like you find the right swing. You find that like right little piece, and it can like make or break somebody.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Which is why being so mentally bulletproof is so important. And here's where it starts. It starts with having your side of the street completely fucking spotless.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of people. It was for me, especially going from, just normal 9 to 5, whatever normal life I was living, and then getting into the business world is like I was trying to put up a front all the time. And it wasn't until it's like, all right, like here's my dirty laundry. Like this is what it is. You know what I mean? Call me out on it if you want, but once all your cards are out on the table, not only is the weight off your shoulders, but now it's like, fuck, I'm good. Like,
yeah,
nobody can hurt me.
I learned it from 8 Mile, right?
Yeah.
When Eminem undresses himself on stage and it's like, now here's the mic, go ahead. What are you going to do? You're going to tell me I'm trailer trash? You're going to tell me that my mom's a whore? You're going to tell me like all this stuff? Like, hey, everybody, this is the case. And that's why it is like, so like what you were just saying is like, when you air it out, you're not airing out your dirty laundry to get sympathy. You're airing out your dirty laundry so no one can ever come at you for anything.
Yeah.
And it's funny because there's two types of like over transparency. Okay. There's like a one-on-one situation where that's like, that dude is so fucking transparent, it's annoying, right? And then there's like business level or public figure level of transparency. Like for example, RFK. Okay, RFK, love him or hate him, and I don't know that anybody hates him. I think everybody pretty much loves him. You ever see how he takes interviews?
Some, yeah, I've seen some.
It's fucking wild. They'll be like, do you think any other women will come out and say that you like were inappropriate or whatever? And he's like, probably. I don't know. We'll see what happens. and it's like if women come out and say RFK cornered me and tried to make out with me at a party or whatever, it'll be like, well, I told you it could have happened. Like, I don't remember each case, but you know, he says I was a wild child. Like, it is what it is. You know, he's open about his drug addiction. You know, he's a full-on heroin addict.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, wide open about it. He talks about it all the time. When his dad died, he started slamming, started injecting. He was a wreck. And it's always like people like that, you know what I mean, that had all the power, like have all the power, and they deal with like, you know, first he loses his uncle, you know what I mean, and then he loses his dad, and like, you know, it's just like, you know, tons of trauma, and before you know it. But anyways, like the way he approaches everything is like, I'm wide open. I'm an open book. And it's such a nice way. So like first, so that was going back to what I was saying, is like first you have your side of the street cleaned, right? And that right there should instill so much confidence in you and so much belief in you, because there's no skeletons. Okay. And then you find somebody that believes in you, right? Like that's a big part of it, right? Is like having somebody that wants to see you win, right? And getting rid of anybody that doesn't. And I think that's the second part is hard. That's hard for a lot of people because it's a lonely game.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. In the beginning, yeah, it's like once you do that, you have two choices. Like you deal with, I'm going to be in the exact same place I'm in unless I change my environment, or like people, places, things. And then when you make that shift, you make that adjustment, it's like you're alone. There is no one around you. And it's like you're faced with the decision, is like, is this the way I want to live my life? And you can either continue down that, or you can go back to the old bullshit you used to do. Like, that's it.
Right. And it's crazy because like people underestimate the loneliness, and that sometimes will make or break a success story, just being able to deal with that loneliness, because like it or not, most of us are codependent in some way, shape, or form. And when we codependent and comfort like go hand in hand, it's like it's just like I say, like confidence and consistency go to hand in hand. The other C's are codependency and comfort, right? And we get used to like our same script, you know, the same thing with the same people over and over and over again. But the thing that you need to wake up to, and not you, just people that could be listening to this, what they need to wake up to is the fact that the vast majority of those people don't want to see you win. They don't.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And normally it's the worst people. Well, I'm going to say, usually in my experience, it's been the people that you think are the ones that are going to hold you up and support you the hardest or the most, are the ones that do nothing but throw shade and so much hate. And they're the ones that want to see you fail just because you left the circle that you were a part of.
Yeah. So you clean house, get rid of the people, find somebody that believes in you, then you put in the work. And that's the consistency part. Now you have the mental edge. I was thinking about this today. This script that we're talking about right here, right, where it's like the discipline, the consistency, the work, the grind, the eliminating the negative people, the toxic behavior, the habits, all of that. Like, this is, if you're in that algorithm, right? Like, that's what you're consuming yourself with. And you're hearing it from everybody in a very similar way. It's redundant, right? It's really, really redundant. And it's like, but we're all saying the same thing. Every one of us are all saying the same thing. And it's like, at does what point does somebody that cannot seem to get it, that like they're like, literally, you can't go on social media and scroll through reels or whatever and not run into somebody saying discipline over motivation is fleeting, discipline, well, you know what I mean, gets you, whatever. It's like everything is revolved around mindset, right? And I have my own opinions about mindset coaching, and I'm considered a mindset coach in a way. But it's like the same script is being told over and over and over again. And at what point do you just feel left out? Like, is it like, this is like, I think it's the best phase of, or season of existence right now, is how much self-help and how much personal development is like literally being jammed down your throat. But it's like, how much of it do you need to consume before you actually do make the change? And how many people are just talking and not actually making that change, or not actually doing what they preach? Like, so it's such a weird time in our life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think from the standpoint of, you were saying algorithms and things like that, especially from like you and I's perspective, like we're in it every day. And so like, if I scroll through Instagram or something like that, it's like everything I see is the same because it's targeting me. But if I were to say, if I were to take my wife's phone and scroll through her phone, I wouldn't see any of it. It would all be very political, things from back home, things for sale. It's just completely different. So I feel like the algorithm does a good job at targeting those type of people. But it's like, once you fall into that rabbit hole, it's time to either one, make a decision, or two, completely change everything, because you're not ready for change, but you have to
Yeah.
decide.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I assume everybody sees Bedros Keuilian, but it's like, it's funny because how many times I've been like, oh, like, you know who Bedros Keuilian? People are like, no, who the fuck is that? I'm like, how the fuck do you not know? Or like, how do you not know who Andy Frisella is? Like, how, you have to like reduce it all the way back to like Joe Rogan. Okay, well, you know who Joe Rogan is, right? Like, oh yeah, I know who Joe Rogan is, the Man Show. But like it's so funny because it's glaring me in the face, and I assume everybody sees it. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Because I can speak to it, right? And like I don't see anything else because I don't care to see anything else, right? Like, it doesn't, nothing else exists to me. I don't care about politics. I follow it, right? But I don't talk about it because it's not interesting. I don't care about sports. I wear a baseball hat because I'm bald. And I usually support the teams that I know a player on. And that's pretty much it. Or like, I've done business with, like, that's it, you know? Uh, so I think you're right. The algorithm is different for a lot of people. And that's interesting because I know when my wife, like, she doesn't follow any of the shit that I do.
Yeah.
Half the shit she follows is in Spanish, so I don't even know what the fuck is going on.
Right. Yeah, I've tried that before, because I'll try and have a conversation. I mean, you know how it is. You're married, right? So you try and have a conversation with your spouse about what's going on in your life, and then it's just like she doesn't understand because she's not consumed in it all day like I am, or like we are. And then I've done that test before. I've grabbed her phone and scrolled. I'm like, I don't want to watch any of this. You have nothing entertaining on your phone. I don't follow it. And so it's like, to each their own type of thing. But yeah, that's really cool. And I agree with you 100%. It's like, I don't want to do anything else other than what I'm doing. That's why I'm consuming the content that I consume and everything else. But I've had tons of conversations with people, to your point, where you've asked, hey, well, you know who so-and-so is, right? And they're like, no. And it's like you're mind blown. It's like, how do you not know who this person is? He like speaks all over the world. He does all these crazy things. They're like, no, never heard of him.
Yeah. My wife didn't know who Tony Robbins was. Like,
Yeah.
are you crazy? The way I had to explain who Tony Robbins was remember the movie Shallow Hal? It's like, oh yeah, I know exactly. Like I'm like, that's Tony Robbins, but like that's how I have to relate it to, like, and it's adorable.
Yeah.
It's adorable. Yeah. It was cool. I had Jay Ferrugia's birthday dinner on Tuesday night, and it was great. It was like the who's who of people in our industry were there, and it was really nice. Just chopping it up, Tony Blauer was there. You know who Tony is?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's awesome, man. I think he's gonna probably speak. I'm hoping he's gonna speak at our event in November. Bruce Cardenas me and Bruce are have gotten close. Sean Stevenson was there. Really, really cool to see him. I don't know if you're familiar with Sean. He's got a #1 podcast. He's an author as well. And then a bunch of WWE people were there. But what was so funny is it's so funny when you meet I don't know if you've ever met a WWE. I'm a nerd. Do you watch WWE?
I used to when I was younger, but I don't now. No.
So I still do. Every Monday night, me and Jay are just texting each other like we're kids again. You know what I mean? And John Morrison walked in and sat next to me and sat at my table. And I looked over at him and I'm like, what's up, man? He's like, hey, I'm John. And then Jay walks up. He's like, hey, you know John. And I was like, and he's like, John Morrison. And I looked at him again. I'm like, put your glasses on, because he wears like, the like razor, like, shades and whatever. And I'm like, and he had them, of course, and I'm like, holy shit. Like I didn't act like anything. I was like, dude, this is great to meet you. And we had a bunch, because he changed from WWE to AEW, and I have friends that are in AEW, and we were just like right away, it was like this connection of like, yo, Andy, and it was just really, really special. But he's fucking cool as hell, man. And I got to have some pretty cool conversation with him about the inside of WWE and how it's ran differently now with Hunter, Triple H running, the show. And then what AEW is like. And there was some interesting stuff that he had said about AEW and how they treat the athletes in there. And it was pretty cool conversation just to hear it from a wrestler's perspective, because, it's, you don't like, I'm also friends with Natalie Eva Marie, but she doesn't really talk at all about professional wrestling much anymore. And even though she's like a diva, you don't really hear much about it, but John kind of gave me some inside scoop, and it was really special. Like to me, I just got to nerd out for a second.
Yeah. When I was younger, I lived, so I grew up in Woodstock, Georgia, and in the subdivision behind me, there was like this big pink house, and come to find out that's where so again, like, I don't know how long you followed wrestling, but the guy Mankind,
of course,
from back in the day. Okay, he lived in that big ass pink house, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? You never expect him to live in a pink house." And then there was another time where my dad used to lift a lot, and so we went into a gym, and I was doing tricep extensions. I was probably 14 or 15, and Scott Steiner walked in, big Papa Pump.
No way.
And I'm like, he was freaking massive. Like, I thought he was big on TV. And again, I'm only 14, so I mean. And he was massive. His arms were freaking huge. And I'm like, just kind of a kid that was just blown away that there was a star that walked into the same gym as us. But
yeah. No, that would have been my era, Mankind, especially because when like Undertaker and Kane, that was like, I like the dark wrestlers, like I like the spooky like entrances, like I love Sting and when I watched WCW and all of that, but and as a matter of fact, so Jay coaches Chad Gable, who's now like, and I mean, you may not know Chad Gable, but he's big now. He's main event pretty much every other Raw. And he and I had not seen this guy. His name's Uncle Howdy. Okay, I had not seen him actually fight like by himself, not without like the rest of his minions. And his like entrance was fucking epic, dude. And it was like I was there to cheer on Chad because I know just because Jay and Chad are so close. So I like I'm always going to bandwagon with Jay because he's my best friend, and so on and so forth. But watching Uncle Howdy come out, I was like, this is spooky. This is really spooky. And it was obviously actually Uncle Howdy ended up winning, which Hunter keeps fucking with Chad, I guess, and that's a whole thing. But interesting stuff. But yeah, man. Well, I'm glad we did this. And I told you, I was like, normally I like to just bullshit for like the first 10 minutes, but we went 25 minutes of bullshitting. Sorry guys, but it's World's Only Podcast and there's no plan here. So yeah, I actually, this is a good topic to talk about, is leadership. And I think for both of us, being coaches, you were a fitness coach before you were agency, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I was a fitness coach for several years.
And, I'm currently, I don't know if you're familiar with these books right here. You know about these?
I am. Well, so I saw it on one of your storylines, and so I checked it out, and I haven't got it yet, but it's like a limited edition, right? Is there a waiting list or what?
There's a waiting list. Yes.
That's what I thought.
I think I have an expedited link I might be able to share with you.
Sweet.
From another friend, big name in our industry, that he gave me one. But yeah, it's because they have like a syndication. It's called the Syndicate Library. Okay. And I'm still on the waiting list to get into that. But yeah, it's really interesting. But either way, in our industry, there's a lot of coaches, but there's very few leaders. And that's something that it always piques my interest. Reason being is because people say that our industry is saturated, right? And I hate that, first of all. And we've had conversations about this in the past. And by that logic, every industry in the world is saturated, and they all are, right? But there's no real competition. And people need to realize when they step into this industry that when you step into an industry that's competitive, not saturated, competitive, but understanding that 95% of the people in online coaching are complete shit for brains. And it doesn't take very much to stand out, right? Especially if you have any like redeeming qualities about yourself. Like, you can stand out relatively easy. But one of the biggest reasons I think that this lacks so much leadership is because people want to go right into coaching, but they're not being coached.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that for sure. For sure. And that's where it goes back to the beginning, the thing that you said earlier. You have people that they don't practice what they preach. And so you have all of these coaches that are doing it for the wrong reasons, and they just want to get out of the 9 to 5. And they're like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to start, posting some content and see what happens. And then they end up hitting a brick wall. They're like, oh, this isn't what I want to do. But they're trying to get people to pay them money, but yet they want other people to invest in them, but they're not willing to invest in themselves by either, one, learning the skill set that's going to elevate them in business, and two, teach them the leadership skills that they actually need to help people get better results.
If you haven't experienced coaching for yourself, then how are you going to share that experience to the next person? And quite frankly, as simple as this, like, I invest in mentors for myself and for my business, for my golf game, for my fitness, for everything. You invested in me. Like, I would want to be coached by you simply for the fact that I know that you invest in yourself as well. And that's how this game works. People need to realize, you know, like when I go in the rooms with like Brad Lee and a bunch of these other guys that are big in this space, I hope they realize that we're all paying each other. Right?
Yeah. Right.
Like we're all paying each other. I paid Brad Lee to go to an event of doing stuff that I teach. And that, quite frankly, in my opinion, I teach it better. Now I don't have all the credentials Brad does. Okay. I don't make nearly as much money as him, but I still do really well. But I believe that my curriculum, my programming, my stuff is better, but I'm still going to pay him a ton of money to be in the rooms and to do that stuff, because I know that I cannot sit in front of somebody and send them an invoice without saying, I do it too.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where you're different than a lot of the other coaches out there, right? But like you had mentioned, for me personally, like when I'm doing things like that, I understand the power of paying to get in a room, because I know that inside of that room, there's things that I can't get anywhere else, whether it's knowledge, whether it's networking, meeting people. It's going to open doors for different opportunities that you would have never found had you have not entered that room in the first place.
It's 100% right. You know, I heard a story about another guy in our industry, not in fitness. He's in real estate, and he's a big name. And we don't need to talk about him, but, you know, he paid another guy who's also in a similar circle as me, $100,000. Paid him $100,000. And he talked about it. He told me about it. He's like, yeah, I paid him $100,000. So that way I'm a client. And they were friends, just like I am with this person. And I haven't paid him $100,000, but we're all friends. And he's like, I pay him $100,000, so he treats me like a customer. So when I call, he picks up as if I'm a customer. And I'm like, interesting. You know, I'm not going to do that, but I do respect that. Right? I do respect that. And I think that a lot of people realize, like, they're not prepared to make any sort of sacrifice, yet they want everything.
Yeah.
You need to realize that we sacrifice a lot to get to where we are. If you're not prepared to sacrifice dick, you're not going to get shit.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that's created by the false promises and broken dreams that this industry has just spewed about everywhere. And it's changed. And like you said, you don't want to use the word saturated. I don't feel like it's saturated. It's just not. It's just more competitive. And it's become more sophisticated because there is just more competition. Not that it's better competition. It's just more competition.
100%.
And I mean, it's different. It's different than it was, 5 years ago. I enjoy it more, to be honest with you, because it makes me stay on my game better. I can't slack and get by. It's like, shit, now I'm going to work a little harder. I got to go above and beyond. I have to raise the bar. And I think that's good. Healthy. I'm a competitive person. Healthy competition is good. It makes you serve your clients at a higher level. It makes you want to do more things, whether it's work on yourself or your business. And to your point about sacrifice, it blows me away about how many people come into this space expecting to get rich overnight. And again, it makes no sense. There was a point in time where it's like me and my wife almost got divorced because I was literally working 16, 17 hours a day in the office without coming out. And there was like almost a breaking point in the marriage because of that. Yep. And it's like, I'm doing this because I'm trying to make more money for the family. She's like, I don't want you to make more money. I just want you to be a part of the family, So there was a disconnect there. But the sacrifices that people put in to get to the level that they're at, most people never see.
No. I'm still at that point. Bro, if you could see my desk right now, like in like the day, like my desk is like perfectly clean, but I have I have like stuff in it. Right. And I keep like my coffee mug. I have a couple bottles of Pellegrino. You know what I mean? And then a little glass and stuff. Like I set my day up so like everything is in an arm's reach so I can continuously work. And at some point I have to check myself and I'm like, am I isolating just to work? Like it's not healthy. But at the same time, it's like, you have a goal in mind, or you have something that you're trying to reach, and you start to appreciate the sacrifices that you make more and more when you start to see the reward. But you need to understand that the reward is few and far between. The actual reward. And we're not talking about a win, because a win and a reward are two completely different things.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Big difference between the two. And I agree. I still do the same thing when it comes to like working. I feel like in the beginning, when I started doing this, I did it for just to build something of my own. And as I'm going through that journey, it's like, okay, I just need to make $10,000. Oh, $10,000 a month. Now I'm going to make $20,000 or $50,000 a month. And it's like I continue to set another goal. And before I know it, it's no longer I'm chasing a goal. I'm just addicted to the journey.
Yeah.
That's absolutely
That's the best thing. That's the best thing you can be addicted to.
Yeah.
Right. If you become addicted to the journey over the reward, the rewards will be endless. But if you're constantly addicted to the reward, and you'll get burned out by the journey.
Yeah.
But again, the mindset will not actually it's not obtainable to everybody, unfortunately. On top of that, we're talking about sacrifice. We're completely leaving out rejection.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic, right?
You got sacrifice, then you got rejection.
Yeah.
We're gluttons. We're gluttons for punishment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's all like a learning curve. It's hard to explain it to people that are looking in from the outside. It's something that they have to deal with or go through in order for them to truly understand the power behind it, of what people will overcome or are willing to endure to get where it is that they want to go. And it's like you and I could sit here, we can try and explain to someone till we're blue in the face about all the things that we've done, but they will never truly feel it until they go through it.
Fact. It's fact. Huh. So you have sacrifice, you have rejection. And then the other thing you mentioned was obsession. Fuck. Tim Grover talks a lot about obsession, right?
Yeah.
It's and the funny thing is people put such a negative connotation on that word when it's like probably the most positive thing that you can talk about. It's unhealthy. Yeah. Obsession is unhealthy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, addicted is the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Being addicted to something and obsession, they both have, negative traits to it, but so does anything else. It all depends on what it is that you're actually addicted to. You could be addicted to spending time with your family. You could be obsessed with working on yourself, but are those negative things? Not if it's creating a positive outcome, for sure.
No. And the other one is manipulate. Manipulate has such a negative connotation behind it too. And it's funny because we have a coach of ours who has a hard time with sales because of persuasion and manipulation. And I told her something the other day. I said, do you realize that in a sea of people, the vast majority of people have your best interest in mind? And that took her back. Like the vast majority of people want what's best for you. The vast majority of people want you to win and want to see, like, the vast majority of people around you may not, but people in general are good people. And I think a lot of people look at words like manipulate, obsession, and things like that, and they only think about the people that were obsessed with negative shit or manipulated to get things that would hurt somebody else, or in a way that would affect somebody in a negative manner. Or what was the other one? Sacrifice, obviously, as well. But when you look at the fact that most people want what's best, most people want to have your best interest in mind, you can take all those words and you can completely change the connotation behind it and realize that, like, if I'm a coach that wants to convince you to join my program because it's going to better your life, I'm manipulating you to join me so I can help you better your life. I have your best interest in mind. The problem is you have all these walls and self-limiting beliefs and doubts and all of this stuff that I need to manipulate around to get you to see your most elite self. It's not negative. It's extremely positive. But because people are hurt or they hear stories of people getting up, they focus, right? That red car theory is like all on the negative, that they don't take time to realize that, oh shit, that's not how most people are. Most people are good people. And that can change those words just like that. And when I explained it to her that way, she was like, holy shit. Her eyes were opened.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that a lot of people do. They have the best interest at heart. It's just, like you said, the ones that are close to us. But when you're able to kind of, I don't know, it's almost just like thinking outside of the box, stop being so just narrow, not necessarily narrow minded, but just, think outside of the normal perspective that most people have about just the meaning behind the word itself. And I think entrepreneurship for me has definitely helped with that, because a lot of times, going back to like normal blue collar worker, things like that, like I focused on that task and that job, and like that was really it. And the only other information that I really consumed wasn't coming from books. It was coming from gossiping friends. It was coming from reality TV, things like that. And so looking at those words, it was all negative. But I feel like there's so many different words that have a meaning that can always be resulted into a positive outcome, for sure.
Agreed. Love it. You have kids?
I do. Yeah, I have 4 kids.
4.
Yeah. So my oldest daughter is 22. She is in the Navy. She has been since that's what she wanted to do when she graduated high school. So she's been there since then. I have a 19-year-old son he's a dickhead. He moved out at 18 and just runs around. And then I have a 17-year-old son, and then I have a 10-year-old daughter. My 10-year-old daughter is like our athlete. Every sport. I mean, she mainly plays softball, but she'll play any sport we let her. But keeps us busy for sure.
How old are you?
I'm 40. I just turned 40.
Wow. So your first one you had young.
Yeah. Yeah.
All from the same woman?
So no. So here, how it's split up would be, my oldest is more like, so I adopted her. She's my wife's, but I adopted her when she was like 5. And then my 2 boys are from a previous relationship. And then my 10-year-old daughter is with my wife.
Okay.
So it kind of all
blended family.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Which is
really blended.
People that come from blended families, like that is work in itself,
Fuck. Yeah, no, definitely, because it's a different level of earned respect.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, for sure. What about you?
I have a 12-year-old boy.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's right. I've seen him in some of your stories, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. He's brilliant. He's a really good boy. I wish so he flies out here. He can fly by himself now. So he flies out here. He spent half the summer with me, and and he'll come on his breaks and things like that. And then, if he decides he wants to, like, because he's in 8th grade, so next year he'll be in high school, and then he'll make the decision whether he wants to be out here for high school or not. His mom's fine with him being here or there. Obviously, she wants him there, but it's up to him. But yeah, we have a good relationship,
It's
and
awesome.
yeah, the kid's brilliant. He's got this like weird like I don't know, memory, where like he just like he can study something, like, dude, he knows like the most obscure basketball statistics, like just crazy things, like, you know he really likes fragrances like cologne. So he like knows like all the stuff that goes into like different types of fragrances and things like that. And he like knows all the brands, and and I like cologne and stuff like that. And he's like, Dad, you got the Tom Ford, blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh yeah, so this is cool because you can mix it with this, and you're like, how do you know this stuff?
Yeah. Kids are
He's just
fun, man. Kids are
best
fun.
smelling 12-year-old around. And that's actually shocking, because most 12-year-old boys are like dirty.
Yeah.
I know I was a little dirtball.
Yeah. My 17-year-old's still that way. It's like, bro, go take a shower, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. But he's like, the kid he's just smart. He's like
That's
an adult,
awesome.
and
Yeah.
I live in Huntington, it's like really safe. So he can, like, go downtown. Like, I live right downtown, so like he can just like go out and, roam the streets. He's made friends with the sneaker shop across the way from my house. It's like kitty corner to my house. It's this really dope, like, exclusive sneaker shop. It's also a head shop too. So like, don't spend too much time in there, bro. But they're good kids that own it. And he goes in there and shoots the shit with them about he's a sneakerhead just like me, and all of it. But
That's
that's
cool.
good.
I remember being that age when, so I was raised by I lived with my mom and my stepdad, and I went to my dad's house every other weekend. And then at 13, I got to make the decision on who I wanted to live with, if I wanted to move in with my dad or not. And so there was an incident that occurred at home when I was living with my mom, and I had been thinking or contemplating about moving in with my dad anyway. And I think I did something stupid and I got in trouble. And I'm like, that's it. I'm moving. I'm done. I'm leaving. I'm going to live with dad. And I went and I did. I moved in with my dad like that week. And I remember having to go to court and tell the judge that I didn't want to live with my mom anymore. I wanted to live with my dad. Um, and that changed the whole trajectory of my life by making that decision. And it was simply based on the fact that I was doing it out of being a shithead kid, not for the right reasons. Because my dad was never home. He worked like crazy hours, and it was more or less me raising myself. I was responsible for getting myself up to go to school. And that's where like I started getting in tons of trouble and just doing all this, stupid teenage stuff that really affected my life in a negative way. Is like right now, like I still like, so I'm not an epileptic, but I do have like seizures due to like frontal lobe brain injury. And I don't know if it's from, doing too many drugs when I was a kid, or if it was from the time I got hit by a truck riding my bike across the street because I was unsupervised as a kid. Like one of those things is what caused it. But it was something that now I have to live with forever because there's no cure or can't fix it.
Right.
Um, and it all stems back to me making that decision of moving and not staying where I was because there was guidance, there were rules, things like that. Because that was the only
I see.
reason why I really moved.
Yeah. Yeah, I have friends that did similar things, and it definitely, like, their dads were, more best friends than they were dads, more
Yeah.
buddies. Yeah, so I'm really strict. Like, I let him do his thing, but like we have a routine. You know what I mean? So when he's here, it's like normal life. I'm not like a Disneyland dad. You know, it's like, we meal prep, we have, bedtime and stuff like that. But I haven't had him. I mean, when I was back in Michigan, I had him when he would go to school and, take him to school and stuff like that. Um, but out here, yeah, it would have to be something but it's cool too, because like in Huntington, like the school is like right up the street from my house. So like the kids like, ride their beach cruisers up or e-bikes or whatever to school. And, you know, it's pretty legit.
That's nice. That's nice, man. Yeah, I love kids. 12 years old, man. That's an awesome age. I can imagine you and him are, have some awesome moments, like memories and stuff like that. I know my 10-year-old, it's like now that I have older kids, and you hear people say it all the time, like cherish those moments because they'll be gone in no time. It's like when the kids get old, it's like, holy shit, man, this is my last kid. Like she's 10, she's going to be 13 soon, and she's not going to want to hang out anymore. So we try and do as much as we can. Weekends are always filled with softball. She plays travel softball, so constantly on the go in a new tournament every weekend. And it definitely keeps us busy, but I enjoy it, man. I enjoy the hell out of it.
It's good. It's good, man. Well, this was fun. I'm glad we got to do this.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I appreciate it. I knew it'd be a nice conversation. So
no, for sure. I had a call canceled too, and I was like, fantastic. Let's see if Dustin's available. So this worked out really good. Awesome. Well, listen, guys, if you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you comment below. We'll put Dustin's information out there if you're looking for a really badass business mentor and you're an online coach that, maybe you don't like me, but you're watching my podcast. No, I'm kidding. But definitely this was a lot of fun, man. And let's keep doing these.
sounds good, man. I appreciate it.
Hang tight real quick.